Hello, everybody. Welcome into the NBA Front Office Show. We've got a lot to dive into on today's show. We're going to kick things off with the Mavs. What is going on there? Yikes. Absolutely brutal stuff happening in Dallas. But we've got a few other injuries to get to. We'll talk a little bit about Luka Doncic as well. All kinds of stuff. So make sure if you're not a subscriber yet to the YouTube channel, you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications as well. Then follow us over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Keith, I know we were off yesterday, but the Kyrie Irving ACL news broke. Absolutely devastating. We knew it was probably going to head that way. When we saw the injury happen, you kind of had a feeling it was going to be, a season ender. But here we are, torn ACL. And I think we have to remember that this kind of an injury, this is often not a one-year injury. This is often a 2-year injury before the player is necessarily back to where they were, back to 100%. So this is a major blow for a Mavs team that really went all in on the short term with the Anthony Davis and Luka Doncic trade.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Nico Harrison himself said 3 to 4 year window. That's what we have here. He said, I believe in a 3 to 4 year window, and that's where they were at. And now we're in a spot where one of those years is gone. That's this year. Probably 2 of those years are gone because then the next year doesn't look very promising. I mean, sure, they can make other moves and try to figure stuff out, but Kyrie's going to miss most, if not all of next year functionally. And then you're into AD has 1 year left. Kyrie's 30, hitting his mid 30s coming back from injury. Who knows, right? What are you even going to be at that point? Klay Thompson will be another year older. It's just really, really rough, and that's why I don't want to relitigate the whole "this is why you don't trade Luka" stuff. But if you hadn't made that trade, and this same thing happens, Kyrie gets hurt, you can at least lean on. Well, we have Luka, we have a chance.
Yeah.
Now you eliminated that margin for error. It's gone. Not that Anthony Davis isn't a great player, but 1, he's not Luka Doncic, and 2, he's hurt too. So here we are. I don't want to pile on because I feel like Mavs fans are listening to this and they're ready to drive off a bridge or something. But it's not good, right? None of this is good. There's no good news out of this. They announced yesterday too they're raising season ticket prices, which is
absurd.
Bad timing award. So I don't know where you really go from here. Some are suggesting, do you look to flip AD this summer? Is KD, who they mentioned, which was going to involve all kinds of wild gymnastics to pull off anyway, could that even be a thing? I kind of feel like probably not now. I will say Kyrie and KD teamed up in Brooklyn when Kyrie knew KD would be out for a whole season after the torn Achilles. So I'm not going to say fully that would be out, but I don't know, man. It's just a mess in Dallas.
It really is. Like I said, they went all in on the next 2-3 seasons. That's what Nico Harrison was saying. They were going all in on the next 2-3 seasons, building a defense, and now you don't have Kyrie he won't be ready to start next season. I don't know if he will be back next season. This is such a late injury. If he does come back next season, it's probably going to be later on, and then he's going to take a while to be himself. It's a disaster. This is a disaster for Dallas. It feels like everything has gone wrong for this team in the last 6 weeks or so. Yes, this is part of why you don't trade Luka. But on top of that, I think now the question is, do you bring back Anthony Davis this year? Or are you so concerned? If they bring him back this year and he really gets hurt, well, then they're in big trouble, right? So what do you think the Mavs should do here, Keith? Should they bother bring it? They are right now the 10 seed in the Western Conference. I think if they decide we want to remain the 10 seed, they've got enough of a lead to do it. Now the Suns got a big win last night. The Mavs have a 4-game lead on the Blazers, who have probably played the best basketball of those 3 teams, but the Mavs also have the tiebreaker over the Blazers as well. So I think if the Mavs want the 10 seed, I think it's there for them. I think if they decide to shut down AD, it's possible they could fall out of that spot. What do you think they should do?
Yeah, and it's important to remember we're getting down to where math is a lot of the determining factor here for teams. the Suns are 3 games back with 20 to play. That's not a lot of time to make up games. If we were talking in a more normal circumstance, like I was doing this with someone the other day because someone asked me, like, just not to purposely bring in your Lakers here, but like the Lakers are on fire. Is there any chance they catch the Thunder? And I was like, oh God, no.
No.
Just not. That's no knock on the Lakers. I mean, the Thunder would have to basically lose most of their games the rest of the way, and the Lakers have to almost never lose again.
That's just math.
It's just that's once you get down to 20-ish games left, it just becomes a math problem. It's not as much about the other stuff. If you're a game or two different, that's a whole different story. But once you started to get into the range of 3, 4, 5 games, never mind anything more than that, you're nowhere close. So to Dallas's side of this, I think if AD is 100% healthy and can play, sure, let him play. But if he's not, no reason to come back. Don't come back if you're 95%. Come back if you're 98, 99.9. It's 100% ready to go. And even then, I understand if people were like, I don't even want to risk it then. I'm not even going to argue with that all that much. I think you just kind of make the best of it and kind of see where it falls. If you end up the 10th seed, so be it. You're the 10th seed. You're probably getting bounced in the first play-in tournament game against who knows out of the Warriors, Wolves, Kings, or Clippers. You're probably not beating any of those teams. They're all enough better than you anyway. Without Kyrie Irving, that's where it is. And then it becomes, all right, what do we do going into next year? And I think part of what you have to do to going into next year part is there's a world. I was talking to some people who know their stuff about injuries where they said, we always say a year for an ACL. But that's with a guy who's like 25, 26, who may still have 10 years left. Kyrie may have 5 years left, 4 years left. He may say, hey, I can make it back in 6 to 9 months, which that used to be the more reasonable recovery time for a guy. We used to see way back when guys would have these injuries sometimes in training camp or over the summer and return before the season was out. Now, I think teams have been like, it's so much more of an investment and we want to take care of guys long term.
Right.
Let's not push this. But if Kyrie was like, hey, I feel good enough to play, then it may cause me issues 7 years from now. What's the chances he's still playing in 7 years? He may say, yeah, let's go. I'm ready to go. And that will be kind of a guiding factor on what you do. But I think you plan from being out, basically all of next season, if not all of next season. And then you just kind of go from there and see where you could go. I don't blame anybody who says try to flip AD in a trade, really set this thing up to rebuild and go forward. And then, of course, what we got to touch on with Kyrie, next contract now. He got that player option. The assumption was he opts out, he re-signs some form of max contract with the Mavs moving forward, and that's where we go. Now there's a world where he may say, hey, my best option is to opt in. I can always extend off of that for, basically the max moving forward and kind of go from there. Or, I can, play it out, see what next year looks like, and then hit free agency in the summer of 2026 when there should be more cap space. The market will look a little bit different. But, man, that's tough for him, too, at this point in his career.
Yeah, I mean, this is where he should be looking at a big extension this summer, and now he's got an injury, and his whole future is in question now. It is interesting, the reporting being that Kyrie was on the path to get a max contract. I'm not saying that he shouldn't be, and also the maxes aren't exactly created equal. But interesting the contrast. We don't want to pay Luka a super max, but we're gonna max Kyrie, right? Like that. And maybe Kyrie will be a 2-year deal versus Luka a 5, and they don't want to commit 5. Again, it's not apples to apples, but still, that's curious decision making there from Dallas, no question.
Keith, it also now we are kind of relitigating the trade again, but even you took AD on to a contract that would be, at least in the early years, similar to what Luka was going to get. I don't know that part. It was incredibly dumb at the time. It's only gotten incredibly dumber as we've gone along.
Dumb and dumber.
Dumb and dumber is. Especially when we see Luka's not even particularly playing like himself for the Lakers, and he's still been awesome. He still isn't hitting shots. When that eventually starts coming around too, forget it. It's just, I just, I don't know. I don't want to go back down that path again.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, it's a mess for Dallas. Like this is, I'm not a big believer in karma and all that stuff, and we joke about the basketball gods, but every once in a while you do wonder, like, man, you do bad things, like, are they going to hit you hard?
Yeah.
With a punishment for doing those bad and dumb things.
It's like you're up 3, 5 seconds left in a game, you miss 2 free throws, your opponent is sticking that 3 coming down the other way. Like that's gonna happen every time. Like there is that that the basketball gods they move in mysterious ways. Last thing I'll say on this on the Mavs, big time game coming up Sunday. It's Mavs Suns. The Suns win. Not only will they move a game closer to the Mavs in the standings, but they will also claim the tiebreaker in the Suns Mavs series on the season. I think if you're Dallas, keep trying to win, see how Sunday goes. And if Sunday does not go your way, maybe that's a sign to, hey, AD, we appreciate you being here, but rest up. Any surgeries that you were thinking about getting in the offseason, let's do it now. And then try to get you healthy by say August to get a full training campaign in September.
Yeah, if this PJ Washington ankle thing is more than a sprain and it's something you need to take care of because it's going to be a long-term issue, get it taken care of, move forward with that, and go. And Washington and Gafford, there was discussions of, well, they'll be extension eligible in the summertime. Where do we go with that? Is that a conversation we need to start having? We're just in a little bit of a weird spot with these guys. Last thing I'll say related to this, because it's Mavs and 10th seed related, got a lot of questions yesterday. What about Portland? Should Portland, be in the mix here? They're 4 games back. That's the challenge. Again, it's just a math problem. And I don't know that I necessarily trust Portland to keep kind of playing well. And as well as they've played, they're 500 over their last 10 games. They need that. If that was 8-2 and they were like a game or 2 back, I'd feel like maybe, why not Portland, right? Might as well. But at this point, I don't think that's going to be where it goes. Well, and then one other last thing, because this will apply, and we're probably going to repeat this several times over the next month and a half here as the play-in tournament plays out. If you lose in the play-in tournament, you slot into the lottery order wherever you would have been. So even if you're one of these crappy teams in the East, you're the Chicago Bulls, and you should be like the 8th pick. If you lose in the play-in tournament, you would be the 8th pick in the lottery, or 8th in the lottery odds, 8th in the draft. As you lose, you slot in wherever you would go record-wise. Making the play-in tournament doesn't do anything to your pick. It doesn't change anything with that if you lose. If you make it, obviously you're not a lottery team, then you slot in wherever you would among the playoff teams. But that's just one note there, because people keep asking, like, well, if Dallas loses in the play-in tournament, though, they're locked into like the 13th or 14th pick. They may be locked into that just record-wise, but it's not because they made the play-in tournament.
Right. Whereas if they make it through the play-in tournament, then their pick would move. And conversely, let's say Chicago, they win game 1 of the play-in tournament, lose game 2, they'll still be that 8th as of right now in the state, the 8th spot. Exactly. That's not going to change it. Okay. Let's go here. D'Angelo Russell would like to stay with the Brooklyn Nets. What do you think about D'Lo's fit there? He's playing less minutes in Brooklyn right now, but he does seem to be enjoying having the ball in his hands more and getting to kind of run the offense there. Could D'Lo become, I don't know, is he a long-term fit? Is he more of a short-term kind of stopgap while the Nets are rebuilding? How do you see his future playing out in Brooklyn?
Yeah, I think what we would see there is that would be a very short-term deal. I think the Nets we're probably talking a 1-year deal or maybe a 2-year deal with a team option on that second year. Because what this would be the Nets looking around and saying, all right, we've got nothing else to spend our cap space on. He's been good for us. He likes being here. We like having him here, because they've also mentioned that they really are enjoying him as a leader in the locker room too. He's been really good for their young guys, especially their young guards. So I think we're really in a spot where that becomes, all right, let's kind of move forward with this and kind of go. And I think that's interesting. It's certainly not going to be let's load up and give D'Lo a long-term contract or anything like that.
Right.
This would be the Nets saying, all right, we're rolling over our cap space to 2026. We got to we got to hit the salary floor anyway. And now we go from there.
Yeah, exactly. This would be a short-term deal for D'Angelo Russell. And I think part of this too is, the Nets are going to have his bird rights. They're going to have the ability. They don't need them. They also have cap space, but otherwise we're probably talking about an MLE type deal for D'Angelo Russell somewhere. So there was some beyond, I'm not saying he's being disingenuous here or anything like that. He may very well want to stay with the Nets, but realistically, the Nets are also probably his best shot at getting an above MLE deal right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're in a position with the Nets where it becomes, let's try to get this set up and go into a place where we, just kind of get this moving. It's let's try to keep him. And to your point, they could always then trade him, right? You could always trade him in season. Somebody's always going to be looking for a guard, guard help. And some, quite frankly, were shocked they didn't flip him, in the course of this season. So, we'll see, where that goes. But yeah, it would not shock me at all if we find out, D'Angelo Russell's returning to the Nets on a,
team-friendly deal.
$30 million deal or something in the second year's non-guaranteed, partially guaranteed, or it's a team option, and you kind of go forward from there.
And then you preserve him as a trade chip if you're the Nets. And so that would be smart, I think, for them to go that route. All right, Keith, unfortunately, Kyrie was not the only injury around the NBA. We've seen a number of them, but tough blow. Jaren Jackson Jr., grade 2 ankle sprain. This is tough for a Memphis side that is in a bit of a skid here, 3-7 in their last 10. They were at one point were the 2 seed of the West. Now they've fallen to the 4. Fortunately, Houston has had their own struggles. You can see both teams have lost their last 3 games in a row, and that's prevented them from falling further. But this is tough timing for a Memphis team that wanted to really start picking things up before they head into the postseason. Now it seems like you're just hoping you can get Jaren Jackson Jr. healthy, get some of your cohesiveness, your chemistry back, hopefully before the playoffs start. And then there you go. Just a big loss, I think, for Memphis. And the hope has got to be that he can get back before playoff time and rebuild that chemistry, that familiarity with the club and get some of their rhythm back.
Yeah, and the Grizzlies, struggling. The last 3 games, ridiculous. They've lost the ball at the buzzer, which how does that even happen? I don't even know what the odds are of that. So that's also, just a weird thing. And then I would say, you got to get him back on the floor. But this is the good news. They have a lot of big man depth in Memphis. They've got a lot of guys who can play. You're not going to rush them back because you're a playoff team. Seeding wise, it kind of stinks, right? You're in the battle for the 2 seed, and without Jaren Jackson Jr., there's a good chance you're probably going to be closer to the 4 seed, maybe even the 5 if the Rockets, who are also going through it a little bit, can turn it around. Then we'll kind of see from there. But it's the paramount thing is get them ready and healthy for the postseason. You're not going anywhere in the playoffs without Jaren Jackson Jr. Almost doesn't matter what your seed is. You need him back. So I would be far less worried about that. And also in the West, is it what's worse, being the 4 or 5 and playing the Rockets in the first round, or being the 2 and 3 and getting like the Wolves or the Warriors or whoever? Like I'm not entirely sure it's worse off to be 4 or 5. That's why I keep saying I think the West might have some seeding shenanigans happening here down the last couple of weeks of the season, just because I think we get some potential teams lining up for. We'd rather play the Rockets in their first playoff run than, Steph and Jimmy and Draymond and the, Warriors, making one last push at this.
It's kind of tough to kind of maneuver yourself right now in the West, just because everybody's so close. A couple of wins or a couple of losses could completely shift things. But you're right. I think especially as we get down the stretch and it starts to be a little bit easier to predict where things are going to go, we could see some teams kind of trying to shuffle a little bit, or at the very least, rest some guys in strategic matchups and things of that nature to see what they can do there. So I agree with you. Although I will say, if you do drop into that 4 or 5, the downside is that then you've got OKC round 2, most likely. So that it's a tough path no matter which way you go. But Memphis, not the end of the. Memphis is not. They're not falling into the play-in or
No.
anything like that.
Yeah,
That's
they're
not happening.
6 games up on the Wolves. Like, that's too far to,
I
even
find
worry about that.
we're seeing it with Dallas too, where among fans, it feels like there's this belief that there's still enough time for a team just to completely just bottom, right? Just completely fall. And there's just not enough room. If there was another 40 games in the season, sure, but there's not. There's not enough time for a team to really damage them because they're not, even as bad as they are, as bad as a team can be, they're not going to lose every single game. That's just not the way it goes. And the team trying to chase them is not going to win every single game. So it's tough to make up that kind of ground. So Memphis is in no risk of falling into the play-in or anything like that. So I think you're right. Get Jaren Jackson Jr. healthy. That's the biggest thing. And then whatever slot you wind up in, whether that's 2 through 6, you just accept it. Like, I wouldn't even think they would fall to 6. That's a 4.5 game gap. They're going to be somewhere 2 through 5, and they'll just be happy with whatever spot they're in, and there they go.
Yeah, completely agree with that. I think with the other part on the, like, just the weirdness of this time of year, the trade deadline was a month ago. Like, that sounds crazy, but it was a month ago. Like, we had the trade deadline a whole month ago, and we're in a spot where you had the trade deadline, then you had the position where it was, or let me rephrase count. Sorry, I'm a little distracted because we have plumbers here at the house. So I'm just trying to
tell Mario to hang on for a moment. We got to finish the show.
I know. We're almost done here. Of course, they were on time, right? If we weren't recording, they would have been here, 4 hours from now. But that's just how it goes. But anyway, the point I was trying to make: you have the trade deadline, then you have like a week or two. Then the league goes away for the All-Star break. Then you come back. February is a short month, and February is just over. Then what also happens is another couple weeks, for a week and a half from now, you have the NCAA tournament starts, and everybody kind of forgets about the NBA for like a week or so. So just a weird spot here where I think sometimes we forget, like, holy cow. Because then when the tournament, like the bulk of the tournament wraps up, it's like, man, the NBA playoffs are in like 2 weeks. And like it's just this part of the year is just a sprint to the end. I mean, you can look, if you're watching on YouTube, look at the standings page. If you're not, pull up the standings page, on wherever you want to look at them. We got roughly 20 games left for just about everybody. A couple have like 21, a couple have 22, but we're down to it now. I mean, there's not a lot of time to make up ground, whether you're trying to lose or you're trying to win. It's really tough at this point.
All right, let's finish things up here. I guess I should have already mentioned this, and I don't want to spend a ton of time on this or anything, but Shams Charania revealed that Luka did have no intention of leaving the Dallas Mavericks. It kind of takes away that explanation that, well, we were concerned maybe he wouldn't sign an extension, something like that, and then he'd look to leave. No, Shams saying no, he fully intended to stay with Dallas. It's why he was buying a house there and all of that, and part of, I think, why there was so much pain involved in the situation.
Yeah, and now one of the other things he said is he fully intends to transfer that loyalty over to the Lakers, which clearly they're going to offer him, the biggest
whatever they
can as soon as they're able to. Hey, I assume he'll say thank you, yes, and then as soon as it's legal to sign it, he'll sign it, and off we go. It just remains baffling that they traded him when they did. Like, it was, I don't know if you've listened to the latest Hoop Collective, but they were like on it again, and they were all trying to be like, let's not go back down that path again. Let's talk about.
But it's hard not to.
But it's very hard not to, right? Because it's still, I mean, this doesn't happen in sports, right? We just don't see this where a guy was happy where he was very good. I was looking at it because I'm writing an article about the Mavericks for later this week for Spot Track.
Mm-hmm.
Literally a year ago, they were starting that run of, holy crap, the Mavericks are good. Like, they have everybody. It was like a month after the trade deadline. Everything was kind of falling into place for them, and they were rolling, and they continued that all the way to the end. They were in the NBA Finals 9 months ago. And now we're talking about,
that's unreal.
Should the Mavs be, trying to be a lottery team? Like, it just completely defies, anything that we've ever seen. And, I don't get it. Like, it is, crazy stuff with this. There were also, we don't have it on the show notes, but just to go over a couple, there were a flood of contracts, move transactions and contracts in the last couple of days. All were related to two-way players being bumped up from their two-way to a standard deal. Why yesterday was the big day for that was yesterday was the last day to backfill them on a two-way. But this question keeps coming up on social media and in our show comments. To be very, very clear, you can still convert a two-way player. Yes, you've got the Lakers cap sheet up. That one is the relevant one because that's the one that keeps getting asked about a lot because of Jordan Goodwin and Trey Jemison. They can still be converted to standard deals. You need to have waive players to do that. We've been through that. Take your pick of which bottom of the roster guys you would want to waive there. But they can still do that. The key things on that are you then can't backfill them. So sometimes what teams will do now, if they feel like they've got enough two-way games left to get through the rest of the season, they may take this into April and then do it in April just to kind of keep the roster whole just in case. And if the Lakers keep playing the way they're going to be playing, they're going to be able to hit the middle of March and say, yeah, let's start spotting guys rest days, right? Because we don't really need to continue to push all the way through. And that's any team in their position. And that's where it's nice to have that extra guy on the roster to be able to throw in there to play 10 or 15 minutes. So that's the balancing act here moving forward. They have enough clearance to do 2 rest of season minimum contracts on conversions now. I think that flipped. I think it was today that flipped for the Lakers to be able to do that. So they should be fine if they want to do Goodwin and Jemison or just one of the two. Jemison's a little bit weird because they have him on a 2-year two-way. So they have him next year on the two-way, but he's played so well, you may not want to mess around with that.
Right. You may want him. And a lot of it comes down to playoff eligibility. That's what they're going to want these guys for. Exactly. So now they've got just under $900,000 below the second apron. So today they've got the ability to waive 2 players and get and promote both Jemison and Goodwin to standard contracts.
If not, it's
right around. I know it's around this time of year. Yeah. They could always do one and do the other one. But the bigger picture, though, is there's no reason to do it right now. Like now that we're past that March 1st date where whoever you waived would have been playoff eligible with another team. Okay, that's gone. Now we're past the point where you could sign another two-way player. That's gone. Now you might as well just burn out their two-way eligibility and then just do it before the playoffs start.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it. And where Goodwin's, I think it's an ankle injury. You're not even using two-way days right now. So you're not sitting him because you're trying to conserve two-way days. He can't play right now, but that's like the silver lining of him being unable to play at the moment is with that. So yeah, I don't know that they'll do both. Quite frankly, I don't know that they'll do either. I think they probably will do one. It wouldn't shock me if they did both. And if they do, great, good for them. And then, you'll have them. I think they would ideally like to do what they can to get them for more than just the straight conversion, which would be 1 year. And the Lakers do have some level of the prorated taxpayer mid-level left that they could use. And on the taxpayer mid-level, you could do that might only be a 2-year now. So it's probably going to be a 2-year contract either way with either guy. If they do that, they'll have some non-guarantee or team option on that second year just in case. But that's probably what it'll look like if they do that, and that's where they go. But for any team, that's where we're at. So you may still see a couple of guys converted here down the stretch, but I wanted to mention that before we wrapped up today because that question has been filling up the mentions on the show comments as well as my mentions on social media. Yeah.
Same for me. Yeah. But yeah, that's the way the situation looks currently. Keith, like you said, before we know it, the playoffs are going to be here. It's going to be, we're going to blink
over a month away
and it's going to be playoff
a month
time.
And a half. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And in between there, we've got like 9 million basketball games between the NBA conference tournaments, NCAA tournament. Like I can't wait. Like later this week, we start to lock into like basketball being on to watch like all day because there's conference tournament. The Missouri Valley, which is always a really fun mid-major conference tournament, starts tomorrow at 1:00 in the afternoon. So
let's go.
I know what I'll be doing tomorrow.
More basketball. Let's go. Always a good thing. All right, everybody. We appreciate you joining the show. Make sure you do subscribe over on the YouTube channel. Till next time. See ya and stay safe.